Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2010 comic book film Kick-Ass. Now, Kick-Ass for me personally is one of the better comic book films out there. It's honestly one of my favorite films of the 2010s. I love Kick-Ass. It's a film that I actually saw when it came out in the theater, and I loved it then, and I still love it now. Yeah, there are some moments where you can tell that there's some pretty cheap looking CGI. Some of the aspects of the script maybe haven't aged as well according to current sensibilities. But man, is it such an irreverent and just really fun movie to watch. It's hilarious on more than one occasion, and when it comes to the action, it delivers and then some. And it's got a really good heart to it as well. I cannot sing enough praises for Kick-Ass. No pun intended here. This movie legitimately kicks ass. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on one of my personal favorites, I would like to give a special shout out to Andrew for requesting this review, as well as my thoughts on the sequel. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon or to my Cash App. The link to all three is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Kick-Ass is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who prior to this, he did Stardust and Layer Cake, but nothing really like Kick-Ass. But it turned out to be a really good fit, despite the fact that he didn't have a lot of experience directing an over-the-top, uh, dark comic uh, superhero movie. I just love the way he directed this. He injected this movie with so much genuine comic book style and charm. It's got a serious flair to it, uh, and it's very noticeable just from the opening scene with this wannabe superhero who's got these wings and is standing on top of this skyscraper and then dives off and then winds up crashing into a taxi on the ground below. And there's just so much about this directing wise that is just very dynamic and is a lot of fun to watch. Like you can definitely tell that Matthew Vaughn was really having a blast doing this movie. He was really getting into the source material, he was getting into the story and the characters, and as a result, like he gave 110%, and it really does show with his direction in this. The action sequences when they are there, they feature some amazing direction with even a fair amount of unique camera work. Uh, POV shots during some of the Hit Girl action bits, usage of various different kinds of angles and other camera techniques. Slow mo is actually utilized in a way that's not too flashy and too over the top, and actually feels like it works and it has a firm place when it comes to its position and its existence when it comes to the sequences that it's utilized in, like the showdown with Kick-Ass and Hit Girl at D'Amico's apartment complex. There's just a lot about this directing wise that I just really feel is genuinely great. And I still feel to this day it's some of Vaughn's best work as a director. Because it's not just the action bits that are well shot, just the other bits between various different characters, with like Dave and his friends hanging out, or Dave in his room, trying on the kick-ass costume and throwing punches in front of the mirror, or Even the way that the scene is shot when he ultimately reveals that he's not gay and he's kick-ass and he and his girlfriend bang in an alley. Like, there's a lot of things about this visually that are very stimulating and very interesting and very uh, unique and very well done. Even the comedic bits are funnier because of the way that Vaughn shoots those scenes. And the moments that are supposed to be heartbreaking, the moments that are supposed to be full of tension, like the scene when Kick-Ass and Big Daddy are tied up during that live stream, and the criminals, D'Amico's men, are just beating the ever-loving shit out of both of them. That's a really intense scene, and it's shot in a way that's very up close and personal and in your face. So this is a film that also has its moments visually where it's genuinely being epic too. Like the first time you see Big Daddy involved in a pretty major action sequence when he's there at the lumber place and just cleans house and takes out all of the bad guys. The various different hit girl sequences when it comes to her action scenes, they definitely hit the right notes when it comes to the direction. Even Kick-Ass and his wild way of handling things is also showcased very well by Vaughn. And there's a lot of stuff in this that's on par with anything that the MCU or any other DC film was doing at the time. And even today, in some ways, you could argue that the direction in this is more ambitious and technically impressive than a handful of comic book films that have come out over the past few years. So, yeah, I think Vaughn did a amazing, astounding job directing Kick-Ass, and I don't think the film would honestly be anywhere near as good as it is without his involvement. Kick-Ass features, in my opinion, a spectacular screenplay by Matthew Vaughn and Jane Goldman. It's based upon the comic book Kick-Ass by Mark Millar and John Romita Jr., but in all honesty, I think this screenplay is better than the comic that it's based on. It changed some things around, added some things that weren't in the original comic, and in my opinion, made a better standalone story as a result. Kick Ass to me starts off right from the very beginning with a really witty and really funny opening sequence with this wannabe superhero who winds up crashing and burning when he tries to fly after jumping off the top of a skyscraper. The first scene is laugh out loud hilarious and the kind of dark comedy that I love. And then as it went on, it just honestly continued to get funnier. And then it threw in some amazing, astounding action sequences and had all of that going on within a really compelling overall narrative with very strong characters that are really well fleshed out. The characterization starts off strong with the first time that you really hear the narration from Dave, who is the lead of the film. And just the way that he's talking about his only superpower during high school being invisible to girls and him talking about all these other things, like, hey, I'm part of a group of friends, but I'm not even the funny one. Like, that is something that just really spoke to me. And I'm definitely not the only one. I saw so much of myself in Dave that it really made me connect with this character on a much deeper level as a result. I was the not very funny member of my friend group. I was invisible to girls in high school, and I did have these larger than life aspirations. the characterization doesn't really stop with Dave in terms of the way that he's written being an overall strength when it comes to the script. It continues with other characters, like side characters, like his best friends, Todd and Marty, or this girl that Dave has a crush on, and Katie, and these uh, other characters that pop up later on in the story, in um, Big Daddy and Hit Girl. The first introduction to those two is one of the most shocking, but also one of the most hilarious moments in the movie, where Nick Cage's character pulls a gun on his daughter and shoots her. She gets up, and then they have this whole um, back and forth with one another. And Hit Girl's making that deal about, hey, I'll take some more shots from you, Daddy, if I get to go to the bowling alley and get an ice cream sundae. Right away, I was like, okay, this is definitely something that is very ballsy, and I really am into this. And it continues with Dave and his first time out is Kick-Ass. He gets this scuba suit that he buys online and designs a costume. And at first, he's just going around and playing. Really, he's doing like a make believe initially, going around in alleys and fighting invisible enemies, trying to test his strength or his how far he can jump, like this bargain store version of the Spider-Man scene, when Peter's testing out his powers for the first time. But like he can't even jump across one roof to the next cuz he just chickens out. He feels like it's time for Kick-Ass to kick some ass. He sees these two criminals, these two guys who actually are bullies at his school, and they're trying to steal a car, and he decides to dress up as Kick-Ass and try to stop them. But all that happens is he gets his ass handed to him, and he gets stabbed, and then he gets hit by a car, and he almost dies. But because of that, he winds up getting some powers. And his powers are that he doesn't really feel that much pain because of his fucked up nerve endings after everything that happened to him. And he also has a lot of metal in his body because of all the broken bones. But because of that whole incident and what he set up in order to cover up the fact that he was wearing a costume, the story is that he was found naked. So now there's this rumor that's going around that Dave is maybe gay. And so that opens up the door for him and his crush, Katie. And he actually starts hanging out with Katie. And he has this whole facade with her of him being gay. And I know that a lot of people hate that. And I understand that. They think it provides the screenplay with something really ugly when it comes to the script and the story, and they feel it doesn't hold up to today's modern sensibilities, and it's aged like milk. And I can see where people are coming from, but I don't really feel it was done in a mean spirited way. So, because of the fact that I don't think it was mean-spirited in terms of its inclusion in the script, and it's really just more of an extension of Dave's naive nature, I don't really have a problem with it. But, he's going along with it because it's the closest he's ever gotten to being with her. And like I said, he's naive. He doesn't know any better. He's also a teenager, like, and he's horny, and he's just thinking about finding a way to maybe be with this girl, and the only way he's ever gotten close to her is acting like he's her gay BFF. It's something that definitely is very manipulative and stupid and foolish, but that's who Kick-Ass is. That's who Dave is. He's foolish. He's impulsive, and he's kind of an idiot. But that's honestly, in a lot of ways, a part of his charm, because he's not like your typical superhero character. He is honestly in a lot of ways kind of a loser. Like, he's a nerd and a loser, but he's also somebody who's very impulsive and dumb. It goes as far to the whole scene when he's trying to save Mr. Bitey, the cat. And I love that scene, by the way. It is so hilarious because he's just hanging on for dear life on the edge of this like grate of some kind, where Mr. Bitey is up there near this billboard and he's holding on. And then he's like, "Come on, Mr. Bitey, come here. Come here, kitty. Come on, Mr. Bitey, let's go." And then the cat's just not wanting anything to do with Kick-Ass, is just ignoring him. And then after a certain point, he's just like, "Fuck you, Mr. Bitey." That's just the way that Aaron says that, and just the way that it escalates, it kills me every time. And then he falls off the top of the not sort of the top of the billboard, but he falls off the side. He lands on the ground. This guy who's running away from these thugs, he winds up tripping over Kick-Ass. And then Kick-Ass decides to help this guy. And initially, he just gets his ass kicked because he doesn't know how to fight. But eventually, he's able to do enough damage with his batons and with his fists to uh, get the thugs to back off. Combined with the fact that there's a bunch of witnesses at this point, bunch of people pulled out their phones and recorded the whole thing. It winds up on the internet, winds up on YouTube, gets like millions of views, winds up becoming this huge viral hit. Kick Ass becomes this big deal on social media, gets all these followers, and this shy, reserved, not very confident teen and Dave, through being this superhero, is actually gaining confidence. This is what leads him to go to the apartment of this guy named Rasul, who is friends with Katie. And I think that might have been after no, I yeah, no, that was actually before he ultimately revealed his identity to her and that he's not gay. So what he does is he goes to Rasul's place to try to tell him to leave Katie alone. What happens is Rasul doesn't want to listen to Kick-Ass and thinks he's a joke. And Kick-Ass tries to escalate the situation because he's a moron, and he winds up almost getting killed again. But then he gets saved by Hit Girl, and you get like the first extended action sequence with Hit Girl, and what a entrance! Like, that is such an excellent and insane entrance for a character. Like the epitome of just badass and then some. It's taking out like all of these drug dealer guys right and left. Big Daddy's also there and saves her later on, snipes some guy. Hit Girl's trying to get Kick-Ass to go along with her and her dad, but Kick-Ass is still hesitant. He isn't ready to fully commit to being this hero yet. While all of this is going on, there is something that is brewing with this mob boss named Frank D'Amico, who is the target of Big Daddy and Hit Girl. And Big Daddy's going around stealing D'Amico's coke and stealing his deliveries. And so D'Amico's trying to get information from other people who are on his payroll, uh, or who have connections to the mob, in terms of who is behind all of this. And he has this one guy. He mentions that it's some guy in a costume and a cape, and you have these other mob guys who are busting this guy's balls, telling him that you saw that he saw Batman, and then he's all like, "I didn't say Batman," and then he gets his finger cut off, and then later on it just keeps on escalating because more and more of his product is getting stolen, more and more of his men are showing up dead. And this one Russian guy is saying that, hey, it was Kick-Ass that was doing all of this. And so he tries to get his goons to try to get more information out of this guy, and they put him into an industrial microwave. And it's just a hilarious scene where the Russian thug is inside the microwave, and he's looking around. He's like, "What the hell?" And the other the guys are trying to get information out of him. Have this one mob thug who's all like, "Where is our coke?" Yeah, and then the guy's like, because he's showing effects of the microwave, and then he just explodes into like a bloody mess, and then the mob guys just crack up. It's so messed up, but the way that it's set up, it's honestly really funny. Because D'Amico thinks that it's Kick-Ass who is responsible for all this, he's put out a hit on Kick-Ass. He wants Kick-Ass dead. And he's actually out in public later, and he sees this guy who is dressed as Kick-Ass. He just assumes that it's Kick-Ass, and so he decides to just lay into this guy in the costume, just beat the shit out of him, and then shoots him in the head, and shoots a bystander who saw it all happen. And then later on, you find out it was just some guy who was dressed up as Kick-Ass for a birthday party. And instead of feeling any kind of remorse because this guy is an asshole, he's just like, screw that kid. What was he doing? Having a kick-ass birthday party while he's snorting some coke. So Frank D'Amico, prior to him knowing about Big Daddy, though, he tries one more thing to try to get Kick-Ass with the help of his son, Chris, who comes up with this new superhero persona named Red Mist and befriends Kick-Ass. And I really liked that. I love that dynamic between Red Mist and Kick-Ass, the scene where they're like dancing in the car, and it just seemed like in a different world, maybe Chris and Dave could have been friends. And that's what makes what everything that ultimately happens all the more tragic and honestly kind of sad. Chris is definitely intending on taking out Kick-Ass. Tries to take him to the lumber shop, but the lumber shop is on fire. He grabs this teddy bear with a video camera that he left there. Chris winds up showing the video to his dad, and that's when you really know that it wasn't Kick-Ass who was doing all of this. It was this other guy named Big Daddy. And I just love the way that this script showcases the first like major action scene for these heroes. It's as badass and as memorable as possible. Like the scene where Big Daddy's going around and he's just wrecking these mob guys. Uh, it is every bit as good as any other action scene you can think of in any other action movie, or um, even something like the warehouse fight in Batman versus Superman. And it does a great job establishing Big Daddy as a badass, as a force to be reckoned with. But because of the connection that Chris now has with Dave, Kick Ass, he winds up manipulating Dave to show up and help him by contacting Big Daddy and Hit Girl because he lies about some bounty being on his head and talks about how Kick Ass is in danger too. And at this point, Kick Ass Dave has started a serious relationship with Katie. He wound up revealing to her that he's Kick Ass and that he's not gay. And instead of her just hating him, she actually falls for him and they become a genuinely charming and cute couple. Was it messed up the way that he ultimately got with her? Yes. But you ultimately find out that they actually are a really nice couple and they really care for one another. And to me, it's one of those things where, yeah, the way that it all happened is pretty messed up, but it definitely still seems like they're a good fit for one another. And it doesn't seem like there's anything that's that negative that really is associated with them being together. They actually make each other better despite everything that led up to that and to them being with one another. And because of him getting in a serious relationship with Katie, he wants to just stop being kick-ass, but he's doing it one more time to help who he thinks is a friend of his in Red Mist, but then it turns out to be a double cross. He and a Big Daddy are taken by D'Amico's men, and Hit Girl is knocked out. There's a live stream that is now being announced about the unmasking of Kick-Ass. It's actually the D'Amico goons who have Big Daddy and Kick-Ass tied up in chairs and just beating the ever-loving shit out of them on a live stream in front of who knows how many people, and just punching them in the face and knuckle dusters, hitting them with baseball bats. The plan to fully take them out is to light them on fire. And so they're about to drop the lighter after they've dumped kerosene all over Kick-Ass and Big Daddy, but then everything goes black. And then the score from Sunshine starts to play. And then Hit Girl shows up and just starts taking out all of the rest of D'Amico's men who are there in this facility, and just taking them out right and left in various different ways with guns and with knives. And it's such a exciting, thrilling sequence to watch. But it's also a scene that is very emotionally powerful because of the score and the way that it's utilized. And as silly as Nick Cage is acting is in this scene, and it made me laugh. And I don't necessarily feel that was necessarily the intent of this scene. It still somehow works. And Hit Girl winds up taking out all of the bad guys, saves Kick-Ass, but couldn't save her dad. He dies of his burns. And then Hit Girl and Kick-Ass team up and decide to go after Frank D'Amico and take the fight directly to him. And Hit Girl sneaks into his facility by dressing up as a harmless schoolgirl, and then takes out a bunch of the people at the front desk. And Kick-Ass grabs this jetpack with a Gatling gun on it, and he winds up helping Hit Girl later. But before he actually shows up to help her, she's doing all the heavy lifting. She's taken out even more of D'Amico's men in this really exciting, thrilling, fun action sequence. I believe it's a library. It could be like a kitchen. Like there's a kitchen library kind of thing. They're kind of like right next to one another. And she's just like taking these guys out. But she runs out of bullets. So she has to use like knives to take this last guy out. But now she's in serious trouble because now one of D'Amico's henchmen shows up with a bazooka and he's about to blow her up. But then Kick-Ass shows up and has the Gatling guns on the jetpack and just mows everybody down. And then you have this climactic fight between Hit Girl and Frank. They fight each other, and then you have Kick-Ass fighting Red Mist. And Kick-Ass and Red Mist aren't really very good fighters, so they ultimately just knock each other out. But Kick-Ass winds up waking up in time to eventually save Hit Girl, because she's been overpowered by Frank, because she's incredibly skilled, but she's still a little girl. But then Kick-Ass shows up, and he's got the bazooka, and he's all like, "Why don't you pick on somebody your own size?" And then blows up D'Amico with the bazooka, and just a very crowd-pleasing moment. And then Kick-Ass and Hit Girl fly away in the jetpack. And because, Chris's dad is dead, he vows to get revenge on Kick-Ass for killing his father. and he's going to be this new supervillain, and is even quoting Batman, with "Wait till they get a load of me," and just the way that everything ends with this movie, with the end narration from Dave, and just the way that everything ultimately culminates. It ends things on a very high note, and it makes you want more. And that's what makes the sequel so disappointing, because you get more, and it's just not even close to the same quality of the screenplay for the first film. This is honestly one of the best comic book scripts for me. It's consistently engaging. It's got a really compelling narrative. It's got strong characters. It's got some great action in it. It's got some fun bits of dark comedy. There's some genuinely witty dialogue and banter between characters. It's gritty, but not to the point where it's over the top in its grittiness. It's got some edge to it, and it's one of those stories that, despite the fact that it is very much a comic book film, and it is pretty dark at points, it finds the right balance when it comes to the tone, and it still has a good heart to it in the end as well. So yeah, I really love the script for Kick Ass. I know there's some people who aren't really as enamored with it as a whole as I am, but I have always really liked and really appreciated this script. Even something like the narration, which normally isn't the kind of thing that really works as well for me, I felt it worked very effectively. And I think it's honestly something that could genuinely be studied when it comes to like how to write a comic book movie and how to do it the right way. The cast is also phenomenal. Aaron Taylor Johnson as Dave. I know some people aren't as big on him in this. I loved his performance. I felt he fit the character really well. He really nailed the naivety of the character, as well as his headstrong nature, his bravery, and he was funny when he needed to be. He had his own sense of humor and sense of charm, and I really liked his performance. It's honestly one of my favorite performances by Aaron Johnson as Dave, Kick-Ass. Chloe Grace Moretz, she stole every scene that she was in as Hit Girl. Uh, Definitely reminded me in some ways of a young Natalie Portman from Leon. Just held her own very well when it comes to the action. For something that's so absurd as a little girl doing all the things that she does, she made it believable because she made you buy in. Some of the lines that she said were a little forced in terms of some of the insults, but most of the time I felt it was very convincing and very believable. And there's also certain endearing quality to her as well. And Nick Cage, he played Big Daddy as if it was his tribute to the Adam West Batman series, and you can definitely see that here. Most of the time, I think his performance is quite good, but there are some moments where it's a bit too Nick Cage. Like the whole scene when he's on fire and he's like, "Take cover, child! Switch to kryptonite!" Like, it's just like, okay, all right, Nick. It's a little too much Cage for me. But other than that bit, Nick was pretty good. Mark Strong was intimidating as hell as Frank D'Amico and funny in his own right when it comes to how blunt he is. Christopher Mintz-Plasse, honestly, I think he delivered one of his best performances outside of Superbad as Chris D'Amico, Red Mist, the son of Frank D'Amico. And he had some really great chemistry with Aaron Johnson, the scenes that they had together. And I really like Lyndsey Fonseca, who played Katie. I felt that her and Aaron Johnson, they had some really good romantic chemistry when it comes to the scenes that they were in. Clark Duke and Evan Peters, they were a lot of fun when it comes to their dynamic with Aaron, and were genuinely funny on their own on more than one occasion. And there's some other actors and actresses in this, like Amari Hardwick, who plays Sergeant Marcus Williams, who is Big Daddy's former friend. Xander Berkeley, who's this guy who's on D'Amico's payroll in the NYPD. Really good cast. And featured some really strong cinematography by Ben Davis, excellent editing by Pietro Scalia, John Harris, and Eddie Hamilton, and a really stellar score by John Murphy and Henry Jackman. The idea that they had to use a piece of music from Sunshine, I think that was a brilliant choice, and it worked really well in one of the scenes in the film. The rest of the score was great too, especially the piece that plays when Kick-Ass and Hit Girl are flying at the end of the movie. Now, I would like to mention a couple more elements of the production. First, the production and art direction. The production design in particular is really impressive when you consider the fact that the original production designer was fired pretty late into the production, so they had to bring in another guy pretty last minute, and the results actually look quite good. The art direction is, in my opinion, top notch. The costume design is the other thing I want to mention, because I really felt that that was uh, amazing. Really did a great job bringing the comic book to life when it comes to the costumes, and they all looked very practical and also looked really good on the screen. The film does admittedly feature some less than stellar CGI effects. Some of the green screen work can be a bit wonky, and there was a lot more CGI blood than I remember there being. It's still something I can deal with at the end of the day because of the strengths of the rest of the film. I love Kick-Ass. I think it's an awesome movie. It was such a blast revisiting this film after all these years. So, anyway, that is my thoughts on Kick-Ass. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.